There is extensive research showing the significant challenges that Black people face living in Canada. As an interesting fact, Black women and men in Calgary and Edmonton are between 1.5 and 2 times likely to be unemployed than the rest of the population. Yet in 2021, Black Canadians in the core age group of 25 to 54 years old were more likely to hold a bachelor's degree or higher than people in the same core age group or who did not belong to a visible minority group or were Indigenous. In spite of these limitations and discrimination, Black people are making significant strides and contributions here in our city and across Alberta and Canada. One such person making remarkable contribution in our city is Margaret Adekunle, the CEO and founder of City Lending Centers. City Lending Center provides credit building solutions such as credit monitoring and credit building services to Black Canadians and immigrants with a goal of supporting the Black and immigrant communities with achieving financial freedom. Given the research on the barriers Black people face, including with accessing capital, I wanted to speak to someone with experience in the financial sector to understand how Black entrepreneurs in Alberta can be better supported. And this is where Margaret Adekunle comes in. Margaret has over 20 years of experience in retail banking, and she is a diversity and inclusion strategist and also a certified inclusion professional. This is the untold story of Margaret Adekunle.
I am the founder and CEO of City Lending Centers. It's a credit solutions company. We have secure credit cards, we have credit building solutions, and we do mortgages. We do a lot of things that you can get done in the financial sector. Now, as a Black woman and an entrepreneur, it's been a struggle to access capital. The reason why I got into this business in the first place, apart from the fact that I've been a banker for 20 years, I've come across a lot of immigrants, a lot of Black Canadians who struggle to get funding through the banking industry. And if I speak specifically to Black Canadians, we're just underfunded. A lot of Black entrepreneurs are underfunded, a lot are struggling. Kudos to our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who introduced the Black entrepreneurship loan through Face Coalition, which I'm a recipient of. I'm grateful for that. At the same time, there's still a lot of opportunities out there that we need to tap into. There's so many programs out there at this point for Black entrepreneurs. However, they have the same old criteria that a lot of Black immigrants don't qualify for. There is still a lot of conversations that need to go on. I got the opportunity to meet an amazing individual yesterday who is going to be working with City Lending Centers and Immigrants Inclusive Credit on a particular research which is focused on racism in the financial service industry. The reality is that there is a lot of discrimination when it comes to Black Canadians and financial services. Being in the bank for this long, I have seen firsthand when a Black immigrant will walk into a particular branch and they're asking for a loan. I know that a few account managers or financial service representatives are automatically suspicious for no reason. There is a lot of conversations that need to go on, but before we start the conversation, I think we need to dig a little bit deeper into the underlying factors. Why exactly is there still discrimination within the financial service industry? We need to dig a little bit deeper, come together and begin to have that conversation. But what I see though is because there is that existing bias within the industry as is. I will give you a good example. When I got my first banking job, I was in Toronto. This is many years ago. I would say maybe 2003. That's when I had my first child, so I won't forget. He was 6 months old at the time. He's now 18, he's going on 19. My branch manager called me into her office and she said a few things to me. if only I know better what I know now. She said, I know you're Nigerian, and I want you to know that I'm watching you because there's a lot of fraud going on with Nigerians. Of course, I was young. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what to say. If I knew what I knew now, that's discrimination right there. That's racism right there. That's stereotype. Because a statement got me really scared. I found it difficult at that time to deal with any Nigerians that would come into the branch. I would push them to somebody else. So you can imagine my white counterparts, how they would be reacting once they find out the customer is Nigerian. Yes, there might be issues with a few Nigerians, but not all Nigerians are fraudulent, and not all Black Canadians are fraudulent. So we need to begin to have that conversation from in out. And for us to get to where we need to get to, we need to dig a little bit deeper and start the discussion from there. We have this notion out there that most immigrants coming to Canada, we have to adapt. That's a constant word and the constant conversations that we have. But the conversation we also need to start having is to have our counterparts, the leaders, meet the immigrants in the middle. A lot of people, there's a saying, bring your true self to work. It's being preached all the time. But to bring your true self to work might mean shedding a little bit of who you are. And if that is the case, you're not bringing your genuine self to work. I don't think the conversation is really more about what we need to do as Black Canadians or as immigrants. I think that both parties, both the immigrants, Black Canadians, white Canadians, need to come together and find a middle ground, find a common ground. A lot of us come to Canada with a culture that we already know, something already instilled in us. And I've seen firsthand situations where leaders expect an immigrant to start a job and adapt immediately. It's completely impossible. So the ask would be finding a middle ground and understanding cultural differences. That's one piece. Understanding cultural differences is one piece. Spending the time to really train as a leader, spending the time to train people, new immigrants coming to work with you is another piece of it. And the other piece of it is to completely erase any perception or bias from your mind. That goes on a lot. And I know we all have our biases, I have mine. However, this bias and discrimination issue is impacting a lot of immigrants and Canadians more. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I founded Immigrant Inclusive Credit, which is a non-for-profit foundation. And with Immigrant Inclusive Credit, we're able to provide a lot of advice with everything financial services to new immigrants and Black Canadians specifically. We also do help a lot of people with workplace issues, especially issues related to diversity and inclusion. And I can take you a step back. I was fortunate enough to be the first Black leader at ATB who founded a Black Team Member Network for the organization. And I tell you, it was such an experience. So I think the most important piece with this diversity and inclusion conversation, either as it relates to the workplace or as it relates to financial services, is to begin to have the conversation around the why. Why is it so difficult for Black entrepreneurs or Black females to get funded? The issue has a lot to do with the racial wealth gap. There's a lot of gap, and it falls both ways, either with Black entrepreneurs or with Black employees. A lot of the leadership roles are being held by white people. And I don't mean that in the bad way. I don't mean that in the wrong way. When you have a very good job, you're well paid for that job, you're economically better than the other person who is not. So a lot of Black Canadians that I've seen, there's a few amazing ones who has great jobs, but there is a lot who still hold a lot of jobs where they are underpaid or not being paid enough, and they don't see as being promotable. The issue of representation is so close to my heart, and it's something that I fight for all the time. We're so underrepresented when it comes to leadership. I was the only branch manager in Edmonton for the longest time. And for most banks that I worked at, when I was there, I was the only Black branch manager there. You can imagine walking into a room and you're the only one, nobody else looks like you.
Be lonely up there.
Very, very lonely, and there wasn't a single leader that I could look up to that actually looks like me. So it's a lot of burden. I wanted company out there. So representation is a big issue, and I'll tell you something that I learned recently. One leader, one executive, top executive said to me, you have to walk a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way in order for you to be seen as promotable. In other words, what he was telling me is that I had to code switch, which is what we find a lot of Black Canadians having to do in order to get to a certain level in the corporate world. I refuse to do it. I refuse to code switch. I want to remain who I am. I'm Margaret Adekunle. I don't want anybody to change me to Jenny James. And I wanted to hold on to who I am. And a lot of Black Canadians feels that way. There's a few that are able to code switch comfortably in order to attain that level, but why should we? So representation has been a big challenge, and I think it's going to continue to be a big challenge for a long time, because a lot of executives that I've had the opportunity to speak with have their own inner circus. That's just the reality of the corporate world. They want to hire James that they went to school with, or they went to school with his mother or his father, because they know him, they trust him, and they know he will have their back. So a Black immigrant coming from maybe Nigeria or any part of Africa, just coming in, working so hard, it doesn't matter how hard you're working. They already have their pained individuals that they would like in their corner. So I think what we can do is continue to have the conversations, hope for the best, and I'm hoping that by the time it gets to my children's turn, things would have changed a little bit, which is why we're having this conversation. I'll take it one at a time. Let's start with the corporate world. Well, we talk about, let's say this advice is for the leaders in the corporate world. I came across a lot of Black Canadians working at call centers with double degrees, amazing backgrounds, who have the ability to lead. Give them an opportunity. Create a pathway to leadership for these employees, and you will be blown away at what they can possibly do. For the Black entrepreneurs, we have white entrepreneurs that starts with us, and they are way above where we are. And the reason is because we don't have enough access to the resources that we need in order to grow and attain the level that we needed to attain or get to. The reality is, when we talk about racism or discrimination, let's forget about all the policies in the world. Let's be realistic. If you're going to eliminate racism or discrimination or biases, empower the Black community. The only way to empower the Black community is to give us access to needed resources. We need funding. We need mentors. We need people. We need venture capitalists to believe in us and the ideas that we have. Give us an opportunity and you'll be blown away. When I become a better entrepreneur and my business flourishes, I'll be able to hire more people within the community. And the wealth chain will go on and on.
Margaret is the founder of ATB Black Team Members Network and has several years of experience developing employees and helping employees build a sense of belonging. An organization supporting Black women in Alberta is the Black Canadian Women in Action, or BCW in Action, founded by John Lehman. BCW in Action is a bilingual, non-for-profit organization committed to making a difference in the lives of Black Canadian women, girls, and families living in Western Canada. BCW in Action brings together women entrepreneurs and professionals and provides opportunities to grow personally and professionally through advocacy, education, leadership, skill building, and economic empowerment.